Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into the true anatomy of a perfectly crafted document. You see, real, highly effective technical editing isn't just about hunting down stray commas or fixing a typo here and there. It's actually all about architecture, structure, and strategy. Think of it like building and inspecting a house. You definitely don't want to start painting the walls before you've actually finished framing the rooms, right? So let's look at the process of inspecting a document from the foundation all the way up to that final coat of paint.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our macro to micro journey for today. We'll start by redefining technical editing, then look at fixing document structure, polishing sentences for clarity, mastering levels of edit, and finally wrap up with markup and collaboration tools.
Starting off with Section 1, Redefining Technical Editing.
We really need to bust the myth that technical editing is just making a manuscript sing. Check out this quote from our source material. What's more important than the information you put in a document? How you organize it, how you link it all up together. Think about it. All the brilliant transitions and perfectly punctuated sentences in the world literally cannot save a document if it doesn't actually contain the right information for its audience, or, worse, if that information is pitched at completely the wrong level of expertise.
So this brings us to what the role actually is. Technical editing is a highly rhetorical, collaborative, and recursive process. The absolute keywords here are collaborative and recursive. This isn't just some one-and-done proofreading session where you sit in a silo. It's a multi-pass collaboration, often involving a lot of back and forth with subject matter experts to guarantee that highly specialized information actually makes sense to the end user. You aren't just a human grammar checker, you are the vital bridge between the expert and the audience.
Moving right along to Section 2, Fixing Document Structure.
Dropping down to the 30,000-foot view, information simply has to be sequenced logically. You can't just throw a bunch of facts onto a page and hope for the best. You might need to move from general concepts to specific details, or maybe start with something simple before introducing a complex idea. Sometimes you describe a thing at rest, like a photograph, before describing a thing in motion, like a video. You can move spatially, temporally, or logically from a problem to its solution. But the golden rule here, pick an approach that matches your audience's needs and stick with it. Mixing these sequences up randomly is going to completely disorient your reader.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens when you fix that structural sequence. Our problem text jumps haphazardly from various types of solar collectors to the general function of a heating system, and then back to the physical layers of a specific collector. It's honestly exhausting to read. But look at the revision. It resequences the exact same information from general, explaining what a solar heating system is, down to specific, detailing the flat plate collector and its components. The clarity improves drastically, and we didn't even change a single technical fact.
Now, once your sequence is firmly locked in, you have to provide a roadmap. Let's be real. Authors often figure out what they actually mean while they are writing, which leaves the first draft feeling pretty disjointed. A really fantastic structural revision technique is to backtrack through that rough draft and consciously insert clear topic sentences at key points. Think of them as a GPS for your reader. They forecast the upcoming material so your audience never feels lost in the weeds.
Let's zoom in a bit more. Section 3, Polishing Sentences for Clarity.
Now we're at the 10,000-foot view, and we have to talk about one of the absolute biggest offenders in technical writing, the nominalization. This happens when a perfectly strong, active verb gets converted into a clunky noun, usually ending in something like tation or meant, and then it gets paired with a really weak to-be verb like is or are. When a writer piles these up into what we call noun stacks, hitting the reader with a long string of them is honestly like hitting them over the head with a blunt object.
Let's actually unpack one of these together to see how it works. The problem sentence reads, measurement of temperature is done. See that? We have a heavy noun, measurement, paired with a weak verb phrase, is done. It's passive, it's indirect, and it's wordy. But in the revision, we actively convert that clunky nominalization right back into our strong main verb. Temperature is measured. Boom! It is leaner, meaner, and immediately easier for the brain to process.
Next up on our sentence-level hit list is redundant phrasing. I honestly challenge you to open up your last piece of writing and search for these exact wordy set phrases. Why write in view of the fact that when you can simply write since? Or why say at this point in time when you literally just mean now? These obvious qualifiers artificially inflate your word count and just exhaust your reader for no good reason. Cut them ruthlessly.
We also have to confront the passive voice. Take a look at the problem sentence here. The results will be announced. Well, by whom?
We have no idea. The passive voice deliberately conceals the actor. And you know, this ability to hide who is actually doing the action is exactly why authority figures, like politicians, officials, and sometimes even teachers, absolutely love it. But as an editor of technical documents, your primary job is clarity. The act of revision, we will announce the results, completely removes the mystery. So the crucial point is this magic number, 15. The person reading a technical document needs to extract information quickly and easily. Because of this, technical documents should generally aim for an 8th grade reading level, and your average sentence length should be right around 15 words. Any sentence creeping up to 35 or 40 words, that definitely needs to be broken down into bite-sized chunks.
Okay, down into the tactical trenches now. Section 4, Mastering Levels of Edit.
Editing is a highly structured, planned procedure. It's not just randomly attacking a draft with a red pen. Step 1 is analyzing the materials and evaluating their fit for the audience. Step 2 is planning your objectives and making sure to review that plan with the author. Only in Step 3 do you actually dive in and perform the edits before finally moving to Step 4 to evaluate the overall outcome.
And when you're executing those edits, you absolutely must follow this timeline. Editors have to work linearly from the deepest level up to the most superficial. You start with content and structure, fixing deep logical flaws in organization. Then you move to visual readability, like layout and fonts. Finally, and only finally, do you tackle consistency and correctness, the surface level spelling and punctuation. Why? Because if you start with the surface level, I guarantee you'll waste hours correcting commas in a paragraph that just ends up getting completely deleted during the structural edit anyway.
And finally, Section 5, Markup and Collaboration Tools.
When you're making these edits and collaborating, first make sure you know exactly what phase you are in. Copy editing happens during the developmental phase. It involves deep, substantive edits, really shaping the document and working heavily back and forth with the author. Proofreading, on the other hand, is strictly the pre-production phase. You are just reviewing the galley, the first printed proof, and making only superficial checks to ensure the approved final copy perfectly matches what's about to go to print.
You're also going to use different types of markup. Procedural markup is what we traditionally think of when we picture editing, marking very specific textual changes, like fixing a typo or maybe deleting an extra space. Structural markup is a whole different beast. It involves tagging sections for specific categories and formatting. Think of using Microsoft Word styles to designate heading 1, heading 2, or normal text. These are complementary approaches, definitely not opposites.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the psychology of our job. People are sensitive to criticism. That's just human nature. So when writing comments to an author, you must be incredibly diplomatic but still completely clear. Notice the difference in these strategies. A harsh command like use Verdana font can cause an author to instantly get defensive. A passive hint like using a sans serif font increases readability is just too weak and will probably be ignored. The absolute sweet spot is a suggestion using an active modal verb. You should probably use Verdana. It will make the text more readable. It's strong, it clearly explains the payoff, but it softens the tone just enough.
And remember, modern editing is not just about text anymore. You have to evaluate the visual and multimedia elements as well. You're checking for appropriateness, like does a bar chart actually make more sense than a pie chart here? You're ensuring clarity with high contrast colors and proper white space. You're verifying ethics, making sure quantitative scales aren't somehow distorted to mislead the reader. And of course, you're balancing the practical, real-world realities of image size for loading times and the literal financial cost of printing colored ink.
Which brings us to our final question for today. The very next time you open a document to review, I want you to ask yourself, are you just fixing commas or are you actually editing? Are you just painting the walls or are you taking the time to thoroughly check the foundation? By applying this comprehensive macro-to-micro structural approach, you are going to transform not just the grammar, but the fundamental value of the information you share. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to see how you build your next document.